Hey friends, it's me, Em again, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things sinister. If you are interested in true crime, or if you like all things horror related, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. That way you can join me for some morbid conversation. So while our story will eventually end in Texas, it actually begins in Orange County, California. And it begins there because that is where Ronald Lee Haskell Jr. would end up meeting and marrying his wife, Melanie K. Lyon, on March 15th, 2002. The couple would end up having 4 children together, and they would end up moving to Logan, Utah in 2006. Haskell would end up being charged in 2008 with the suspicion of domestic violence, assault, and committing an act of violence in front of children. This charge came from an act where allegedly Haskell had dragged his wife out of the bed by her hair and hit her in the head. Haskell denied any domestic violence, but did accept a plea deal where he did plead guilty to the assault charge, and the other charges ended up getting thrown out. Melanie would end up filing for an order of protection against Haskell on July 8th, 2013, and that order would end up being served to Haskell the next day. The following month, Melanie would end up filing for divorce against Haskell, and because of this, come October, that order of protection would actually end up getting thrown out. And this is because during the divorce proceeding, Melanie and Haskell would end up agreeing to a joint restraining order against each other, as well as agreeing upon a custody agreement, which would give Melanie primary custody of their 4 children. The divorce would ironically be finalized on Valentine's Day of the following year, and when it was finalized, Haskell would end up moving back to California to stay with his parents, and Melanie and the kids would end up moving to Texas to be near her sister, Katie Stay. So Haskell actually wouldn't end up staying with his parents for very long, and that is because on July 2nd of 2014, that same year, Carla Haskell, which was his mother, would end up filing a restraining order against her own son. And that is because Haskell would end up taking his mom out to the garage, restraining her hands, tying her down to a computer chair, leaving her there for hours, and then threatening to kill his entire family. And he did this because he found out his mom, Carla, was still in contact with his ex-wife, Melanie, which Melanie has primary custody of the kids. I don't think personally that it's unusual that Carla is in contact with the mother of her grandchildren who has primary custody of her grandchildren. But when Haskell found this out, it just completely set him off and threw him off the deep end to the point where he restrained his mom and left her tied to a computer chair for hours at a time. So when Carla actually filed for this restraining order, deputies would begin to look for Haskell to serve him with this order, and they would be unable to find him. And it wouldn't be until about a week later that they found out the reason why they couldn't find him was because he was not in California. After this incident, Haskell would end up traveling to Texas to look for his ex-wife. On July 9th, Haskell would arrive at the door of Melanie's sister's home, and when he knocked on the door, he was dressed as a FedEx delivery driver, so kind of in disguise, trying to pull the wool over their eyes. And Cassidy Stay, the oldest child and the oldest daughter, would end up answering the door. Haskell would ask Cassidy if her parents were home, and Cassidy told him that they weren't. And Haskell left. He left the house, but he didn't leave the house for very long. He actually ended up coming back to the house and knocking again. Cassidy answered the door again, and this time Haskell told Cassidy that, obviously, I'm not a FedEx driver. I am your ex-uncle. I was married to your Aunt Melanie, and I need to see your parents. At this moment, Cassidy would try to shut the door on Haskell, but I mean, he's a big guy. She's a teenage girl. He was able to overpower her and get into the home. And when he overpowered her and got into the home, he would restrain her as well as her siblings, tie them up, and put them face down on the floor. Later on, when the parents arrived back at home, he would end up doing the same thing to Katie and to her husband, where he would restrain them and lie them face down on the floor. At this point, he asked them where Melanie was, where he could find his ex-wife. And I don't know if they just genuinely didn't know where she was. I don't know if they were trying to protect her from him. I don't know if the kids knew where she was. You know, they were just kids. Regardless, when Haskell did not get the information that he wanted, he would go to all of the children as well as both of the parents, and he would shoot them all in the back of the head, execution style, before fleeing the scene. Parents Stephen and Katie died on the scene, as did 3 of their 5 children, while a 4th child would end up passing later at the hospital. Brian was 13, Emily was 9, Rebecca was 7, and Zachary was only 4 years old. Cassidy, the eldest child and the one who answered the door when Haskell arrived, would be the sole survivor that day. She had managed to raise her hand, and because of this, the bullet would graze her hand and skull, only causing her to lose a finger and get a skull fracture, but it was still enough to allow her to play dead, making Haskell think that he was successful. When Haskell left the home, Cassidy was able to get to the phone and call 911 and let them know what had happened. She had also told them that she thought that Haskell was on the way to her grandparents' house to murder them or to hurt them. Police ended up in a chase with Haskell that lasted only about 20 minutes before his vehicle was stopped and Haskell was cornered in a neighborhood cul-de-sac. However, he had a gun, and despite being surrounded by armored vehicle and police, the standoff still lasted hours as the neighborhood was evacuated before Haskell finally surrendered. On July 10th, he was charged with 6 counts of capital murder, and he actually made quite a few court appearances over the next few years, and his official trial would not begin until August of 2019. The following month, in September, he would be found guilty on all 6 counts of capital murder, and in October, he would be sentenced to the death penalty by lethal injection. So Ronald is still awaiting on death row for his sentencing to be carried out. He's still awaiting execution. Cassidy, who is, like I said, the sole survivor of this case, she did make a full recovery from her injuries, and she was a pretty critical witness in the 2019 trial. Very heartfelt testimony that she gave at the trial, very gut-wrenching.
And right now, Cassidy Stay, the only surviving child,
is taking the
past
5 years, I've always wanted to know how you felt about me and what kind of remorse you felt. And my family always said that you only felt sorry for yourself, and I didn't want to believe that because I thought, surely he has to feel bad for killing my family. And when I heard that you felt no remorse, something changed inside of me, and I didn't know what to do with that change, and it was causing me a lot of hurt and anger because that was my closure. My closure was the hope that you would feel bad. I no longer have the desire for any closure because this is it. There's nothing left on this earth that will soothe my wounds and worries. Only God can help me now. And that's what I've decided to do with my resentment and my anger towards you. I'm letting go of my emotions and I'm giving it to God because He'll take care of me and He'll help me through this. The jury decided that you were going to die by lethal injection, and I respect their decision. Do I think the punishment fits the crime? No. I hope that when you die, you will get the punishment you deserve from God. Only God can help you now. Are you going to feel remorse one day? I don't know. And I want to tell you that I don't care anymore. I'm going to continue to live my life with happiness, and I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to forget about this, and I'm going to forget about you. You've been in control long enough, and now your game is up. You're not in control anymore. You've lost, and this is it for you. God will be there for you when you need him, and that time is going to come quickly for you, whether you like it or not.
Thank you very much. Let me step down.
As of right now, she is in her 20s and, from my understanding, doing her best to lead a normal life. Melanie did struggle with survivor's guilt for some time, thinking that she was the reason that this all happened and that she was the one to blame, but ultimately did end up putting the blame on Haskell himself because he is the one who did it. When she heard that he was trying to be evaluated for like an insanity plea or whatever, she spoke out against that because she had just experienced years of abuse from Haskell. This was not like a snap thing. This is something that she had experienced from him before. She knew his aggressive tendencies. She knew his violent side. And she knew that his state of mind was no different during these murders. She also did testify during the 2019 trial, and she was a pretty big key witness to the story as well as Cassidy was. What's crazy about this whole thing is the Haskell and the Stay family had known each other since childhood. They had gone to church together. They had known each other since they were kids. It wasn't until they actually got married that the abusive side actually came out, and this horrible person just presented themselves. And before that, like I said, the families had sleepovers together and had grown up together. So this was a pretty big twist. Once they got married, his personality shift was a pretty big twist from my understanding. Anyway, honestly, I'm really kind of surprised. When I started working on researching this case, I found it to be incredibly interesting. I mean, 6 people ended up dying at this one like little incident, and it seemed like a pretty interesting case to me. But when I was researching it, I found, news articles on it, and I found court videos on it and stuff. But as far as like commentary video on YouTube, it's not really talked about. It's not really circulated in the true crime community. And so that's a personal goal of mine this year. I'm going to be trying to get into cases like this where they're interesting cases. They need to be talked about. They deserve to be talked about, but nobody's talking about them. And so if that is something that you are interested in, and if you'd like to join me on this journey, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and turn on all your post notification bells. That way you'll be notified when I sit down here for another morbid conversation. And until then, as I always say, guys, take care, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later, okay? All right, bye.